Before we begin, I just want to give a solid warning that this video will contain my opinion, which I might express in an otherwise polarised or arguably biased manner, so you've been warned. After Assassin's Creed Unity and Syndicate especially, Assassin's Creed fans and gamers all over started to notice that the franchise had become somewhat stagnant, what with the franchise starting to feel a bit repetitive. The games, in all their glory, had the same basic structure: 9 to 12 sequences of story content, some modern day elements here and there, tailing missions galore, and an open world filled with virtually nothing interesting to do besides collect Animus data fragments and open chests. Assassin's Creed Origins, however, seems to be heading in a different direction, one new to the franchise: the RPG route. Origins seems more like games such as The Witcher 3 than any Assassin's Creed title we've seen before. As much as a lot of people may see this as the franchise completely losing its identity, I personally see this change as a welcome one. Assassin's Creed Origins is different to the Assassin's Creed titles we've seen in the past, and this is a good thing. One of my main issues with recent Assassin's Creed titles, especially Rogue, Unity and Syndicate, is that the game started to feel a bit samey. I felt as if I was having the exact same experience in Assassin's Creed Syndicate as I was in, say, Assassin's Creed 3. And although the games do vary in gameplay considering they use different gameplay engines, my in-game experience didn't vary much at all. In Assassin's Creed 3 we got 12 story sequences, a decent modern day, and a virtually empty open world with barely anything worth doing, and that was about it. With Syndicate we got 9 sequences, a virtually obsolete modern day, and an open world with hardly anything to do in it again. In fact, if I were to spot one difference between the experience I had with Assassin's Creed 3 and Syndicate, it would be that my experience has lost its quality a little bit throughout the years as well. This wasn't even the first time I felt the repetitive toll of the Assassin's Creed games. In fact, I felt the games had gotten a little repetitive after Revelations came out. The game, despite its amazing story, had, in my opinion, a very bland open world with hardly anything to do worthwhile and gameplay far too similar to Brotherhood. Another blatantly obvious example of repetition within the Assassin's Creed titles would be Black Flag and Rogue. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was an amazing game, one I absolutely loved to play for values both within and outside of the franchise. It's great fun, and I'd probably hold it as the most different Assassin's Creed experience I've had in the entire franchise, which is why when Rogue came along, where the differences were as minimal as a couple extra kill animations and a different coloured HUD, I saw the big issue with the franchise. Or at least one of the many. Oh, God hurt me. And to a degree, these issues were upheld in Unity and Syndicate. And that is that the games had gotten far too samey. And this is why I'm very welcoming to the changes that Origins is introducing. I want a refreshing experience. I know a lot of fans are worried about Assassin's Creed fully losing its identity and being too different from how it used to be, and I mean, perhaps they're right. This is definitely a big step for the franchise, but if I were to pay £50 every release just to have the same experience time and time again, I'm pretty sure it won't be long before I lose my entire interest in the franchise altogether. Now, I know there's a difference between changing it up a little and changing it up a lot, and they are definitely changing it up a lot with Origins, but they tried to change it up a little with Unity and Syndicate, and in my mind, and to a lot of other fans and other gamers, it wasn't enough. So that's why these massive changes are needed, to refresh the experience and make a new experience that we can identify with Assassin's Creed, as opposed to minimal changes between games and little to no difference in them really at all. Yes, I do understand where people are coming from, and I do believe that these big changes will provide an experience that might seem a little different to what we as fans of the franchise are used to, that being sequence missions and minimal side content as opposed to the potential hours of side quests that we might find in Origins. But I do feel as if they will want to bear the core values of the franchise in mind. From what we've seen, I'd probably say that the core values of the franchise will be upheld in Origins. but the experience itself looks like it might and should be completely different to previous games within the franchise. So I feel as if when people are worried about Origins being too different, they're more just worried that the game won't uphold the franchise's values, as opposed to holding concerns about any actual changes that we're seeing. But with that one, we'll just have to keep our faith in Lord Ashraf Ismail and the Origins team. So, how is Origins' potential different experience a good thing? Well, as I said before, the franchise's shortcomings in the past usually have been with the virtually empty open worlds that we've seen. But here you might argue that there are data fragments to collect, you just need to look for them. You see, if I could be bothered looking for data fragments that do nothing for me and benefit my experience in no way whatsoever, I'll let you know. I have nothing against them being present, they're just not a substitute for actual content. Origins, being an RPG, will have a more fleshed out open world filled with quests to complete and places to explore, giving us a fresh experience through having a filled open world alone. The sequenced mission structure is gone, and although I understood that in previous games, I can understand how restrictive it would be on an RPG, and I'm willing to give the whole main quest approach a shot. Another one that's worried a lot of fans is the game's hitbox based combat system, which will be more challenging than previous combats we've seen in Assassin's Creed, because the hitbox based system will actually require us to think, as opposed to mindlessly mashing buttons like we had to in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag or even before that. And more challenge usually equates to more fun. And I mean, you could argue that it doesn't look as clean, but I'd sacrifice the aesthetics for a fun combat system as opposed to a tedious one any day of the week. I could sit here for hours listing things that I see as improvements, but I think there's only really one thing that's appropriate. Camels. Nah, but seriously, the only other one I'm going to list is ancient Egypt itself. A historical setting that is so close to fantasy that it's unlike anything in history that I'm aware of. I'm sure this setting will provide its own tone and experience, one which I'm very excited to explore because I'm pretty sure that it will be unique to anything that we've seen within the franchise in the past. To finish off this entire video, I understand that it's incredibly important to both change up the experience in a way that makes it unlike any that we've seen in the franchise before, and uphold the core values that those Assassin's Creed games had at the same time. But I have faith in Ashraf Ismail and the rest of the Origins team on this one, and I'm pretty sure that the gameplay and the experience that we get will not compromise Assassin's Creed at its core, which is why I am personally very excited to experience the changes that they've made to the franchise in this game for myself when the game comes out on the 27th of October, because these guys made Black Flag. That game is brilliant. I love that game.